On our wedding anniversary, Robert brought his divorce first love home. He expected me to cook meals for them every day, changing the menu, and even gave our daughter's bedroom to his first love's child. I took care of them with all my heart, only for our daughter's hands to be broken by Jessica's son, a permanent injury that would never fully heal. Our daughter is 8 years old this year, very talented at the piano, and was about to compete in the Starlight Cup finals, but the hand injury forced her to stop. When Robert found out, he just said it was normal for kids to play rough and told me not to make a big deal out of it. Then he took Jessica and her son to an amusement park, completely disregarding our daughter's feelings. That's when I understood that in his heart, our daughter and I were simply not important. Realizing everything, I took our daughter and boarded a plane going abroad, in this life and the next. I never want to see him again. Today was our 10th wedding anniversary. I had specially prepared a large dinner and bought him an expensive suit. I waited hopefully for him to come home from the office. But when I saw the scene at the door, my smile froze. Robert was helping Jessica with her luggage in his left hand, while his right hand held a little boy's hand, standing together. They looked like a happy family of 3. Seeing the difficulty on my face, he explained, Jessica is divorced and has nowhere to go. After all, we've been childhood sweethearts. I can't just abandon her. Jessica stood nearby, biting her lip, and tearfully pleaded, Clara, Kevin and I will only stay for a few nights. We'll move out as soon as we find a place. She lowered her head, looking somewhat wronged. Robert saw this and quickly comforted her. It's all right, Jessica. This is my house. You and Kevin can stay as long as you want. Jessica glanced at me timidly upon hearing this and whispered, maybe we shouldn't. Clara doesn't seem very happy. I wasn't actually that angry. After all, we had been married for so many years, and I didn't doubt his sincerity. It was just that he always discussed things with me before, but this time he brought 2 people home without giving me a heads up. I found it a bit strange. Robert frowned slightly and looked up at me. Clara, are you unwilling to look after Jessica for a few days? His tone was uncharacteristically cold. I was a little stunned. Did he think I was embarrassing him in front of his friend? Thinking this, I immediately put on a smile and said, of course not. I'll go clean the bedroom right away. Hearing my words, Robert's expression softened considerably. He said to Jessica solicitously, Jessica, go pick out a bedroom. Clara will clean it for you later. If you need anything, just tell her and she'll buy it. Kevin, who was following the 2 of them, heard this and looked up, saying loudly, Uncle Robert, I want to pick a bedroom too. Before Robert could answer, he scurried into the house. Seeing the cake on the table, he reached out and grabbed it. The frosting on the cake, which depicted Robert and me, was smeared everywhere. Kevin shook his little hand in disgust and said, this cake is so ugly. It's not as pretty as Mom's, Uncle Robert. Next time ask Mom to make you a nice one. Can we throw this away? Seeing the cake I had stayed up late to make turn out like this, even with my usually good temper, I felt a bit annoyed. I expected Robert to scold Kevin, but instead, he smiled, took a handkerchief from his pocket, and wiped his hands. Okay, next time I'll have your mom make one for Uncle. A flicker of surprise crossed my face, but before I could say anything, Jessica said softly, Clara, please don't be angry, boys will be boys. I'll talk to him later. What could I say when his own mother had already spoken? It was only then that Robert seemed to remember something. He leaned in and whispered to me, Clara, Kevin has a rare behavioral condition. He's more mischievous than usual kids, so please be patient with him. Hearing this, a hint of surprise flashed in my eyes. I had heard of this condition. It wasn't just about being mischievous. This child was a ticking time bomb, liable to explode at any moment. I pulled Robert aside and whispered, this condition is dangerous and can hurt people. You should help them find a place quickly. I expected him to agree, but instead, he gave me a displeased look. Kevin is just sick. He's normal. With that, Robert turned and scooped Kevin into his arms, smiling warmly. Kevin, how about we eat first? I stood there stiffly. He had never been so affectionate with our daughter. Every time she wanted him to hold her, he would frown and say she was too old and shouldn't be clinging to parents. I had thought Robert simply didn't like young children, but now he was showing such affection for someone else's child. Before I could figure out what was going on, Lily opened her bedroom door and happened to see the scene. She was about to participate in the Starlight Cup and had been practicing piano pieces in her room for the past few days, so she hadn't heard the earlier commotion. Seeing her father holding a child only a few years younger than herself with such fondness, a hint of hurt appeared on her face. But she quickly composed herself and said to Robert, trying to please him, "Daddy, you're back. Mommy made lots of good food for you," before she could finish. Robert interrupted impatiently, "Go wash your hands quickly, Jessica and Kevin are still hungry." His voice was stern. The smile vanished from Lily's face instantly, and she nodded, lowering her gaze. My heart ached. I stepped forward and took her hand, comforting her. "Don't be sad, sweetheart. Daddy didn't mean to be harsh. He was just worried our guests were hungry." Lily nodded, seeming to understand. "Mommy, I get it. We need to respect guests. It'll be good." At the dinner table, Robert kept serving them food to Jessica and her son, his expression gentle. "Kevin loves shrimp, doesn't he? How about Uncle peels the shrimp for you?" Kevin's little cheeks were full as he ate, and he said happily, "Uncle Robert is the best." Lily gripped her chopsticks tightly, her face filled with sadness. She loved shrimp too, but her father had never peeled them for her himself. By the end of the meal, everyone except Lily and I seemed happy. Before bedtime, Jessica chose the bedroom next to Robert's and mine, while Kevin insisted on staying in Lily's bedroom. He lay on the pink rug, crying his heart out. "I want this bedroom. I don't want the guest room. Boo-hoo. Uncle Robert, don't you love me anymore? Why does she get the big room and I get the small room?" Hearing this, Lily's pretty little face instantly paled a few shades. She looked at Robert pleadingly, hoping he would say something for her, but Robert just gave her a brief glance and said, "You're the older sister. You should yield to your brother. Are you so old you still don't understand this?" Lily had always been the most well-behaved and understanding child. Her teachers at school said she was like a little angel. Hearing her father say this, she shook her head uneasily and forced a smile. "Daddy, I can stay anywhere. If Kevin likes it, let him stay here." Robert merely grunted in response and looked away. Seeing Lily upset, I was about to step forward and speak up for her, but Jessica stopped me. She looked apologetic, saying nervously, "Clara, Kevin is a peculiar child. If he doesn't get to stay in this room, I'm afraid he'll throw another tantrum." Lily tugged at my sleeve and whispered, "It's okay, Mommy. Kevin won't be staying in my room forever anyway." Seeing such a well-behaved and understanding daughter, I felt a little better, thinking that Kevin had his condition. It wouldn't be good if there was a conflict and Lily got hurt. So I didn't say anything more. Seeing us yield, Kevin scrambled up triumphantly and made a face at Lily and me. Robert saw this and couldn't help but chuckle, ruffling his hair. Lily's expression became even more crestfallen, and a faint sense of unease began to grow in my heart. In the following days, Jessica and her son stayed at the Roberts estate. At first, they were somewhat restrained, but later, they demanded something different to eat every day. Since Robert didn't like outsiders staying in the house, I was the one who did all the cooking. One day, Kevin insisted on having spicy shrimp scampi. I prepared the dish and served it. When no one was looking, he reached out, grabbed a bite, and after eating it, broke out in a dense rash. I was startled and called for an ambulance to take Kevin to the hospital. At the hospital, Jessica glared at me as if I were an enemy. She called Robert. "Robert, your wife deliberately fed Kevin fish. Kevin is dying." Robert rushed over quickly. He looked at me with fierce eyes, his tone icy. "How could you be so malicious? You wouldn't even spare a child." His words stunned me. Lily quickly spoke up for me. "Daddy, Kevin said he wanted to eat spicy shrimp scampi. That's why Mommy made it." Jessica heard this and pointed at her, heartbroken. "How can you tell such lies at your age? Kevin has always been severely allergic to fish. How could he possibly ask for spicy shrimp scampi?" Saying this, she covered her face and leaned weakly into Robert's arms. "Robert, I told Clara long ago that Kevin couldn't eat fish, but she. Robert heard this and looked at Lily and me, full of disappointment. "I thought you were sincere towards Jessica and Kevin, but I didn't expect you to be so cruel. If Kevin doesn't recover, you two can get out of the Roberts family." I never expected him to say such a thing. My lips parted and closed several times before I managed to say hoarsely, "So, now you're going to kick Lily and me out for two outsiders?" Seeing the sadness on my face, a hint of regret flickered in Robert's eyes. But then he saw Jessica in his arms, her eyelids red and swollen from crying, and his expression hardened again. "When you make a mistake, you have to face the consequences. I don't want my woman and child to be people who won't admit they're wrong." Lily heard this, and her eyes welled up with tears from the injustice. But she said stubbornly, Mommy and I didn't do anything wrong. We didn't lie. They are the ones who lied. Robert's brow furrowed, and he looked at her with disgust in his eyes. You're still denying it now, Clara? This is the good daughter you've raised. With that, he pointed towards the door, his tone impatient. Get out. I don't want to see you anymore. I took a deep breath, trying to suppress the anger in my heart, and led Lily out of the hospital room by the hand. Lily was still upset, crying brokenly. Mommy, why doesn't Daddy believe us? Why is he so good to Jessica and Kevin? Mommy, is he really my dad? Before, I would have firmly told her that Daddy was just strict and not that he didn't love her. But now, even I had to wonder if Robert truly loved Lily and me. My heart ached as I held Lily, and I said as gently as possible, there, Daddy is just angry right now. Well, go back and practice piano. When Jessica and Kevin come back, Mommy will help them find a place so they can move out. Soon it was time for Kevin to be discharged from the hospital. Jessica brought him back to the mansion, and I had also found a place for them when I told him about it. Robert's expression changed. A flicker of impatience crossed his handsome face, and he reprimanded, Clara, what is the meaning of this? My patience was also wearing thin. I looked at him coldly. I've wanted to ask for a while now. You said you'd find a place for Jessica. But why hasn't it happened after all this time? Jessica looked somewhat hurt and glanced at Robert. Robert, is Clara bothered that we used to be together? Is that why she's in such a hurry for me to move out? Please explain to her. We're history. I don't want to affect your relationship. At the moment I heard this, my heart suddenly constricted. I only knew Robert and Jessica were childhood sweethearts, but I didn't know they had actually been in a relationship. I looked at Robert in disbelief. His expression was a little grim. After a long time, he finally explained. That was back in high school. Jessica nodded along. Yes, Robert was in his first relationship back then. He didn't know anything. Clara, please don't misunderstand. So she was his first love. No wonder. I bit my lip, holding back tears, feeling as if my heart was shattered. Before I could compose myself, Lily's heartbreaking cries suddenly came from downstairs. I rushed down to see, only to find both her hands pinned under the piano. Faint traces of blood were oozing out onto the piano keys. Lily was trembling all over from the pain and had fallen to the floor, her face deathly pale. Kevin stood with his arms crossed, grinning. You like playing the piano, don't you? Keep playing. Why aren't you playing now? Robert, standing nearby, merely glanced over and said nonchalantly, her hands are just bruised and swollen. A little medicine will fix it. Jessica also came over to smooth things over. Kevin is always so rough. I'm really sorry, Clara, right now. I only cared about Lily's injuries. I couldn't be bothered dealing with these people. I called for an ambulance and took Lily to the hospital, ignoring them on the way. Lily had fainted from the pain. I felt as if my heart was being fried. The pain was unbearable. The doctor examined her and told me that both of Lily's hands were broken, and the injury was severe, making it very difficult for them to fully recover. Hearing this, my vision went black, and I nearly fell. Lily loved playing the piano the most. She was about to win the first award of her life, and this had happened. Robert didn't even come to the hospital to see Lily until after her surgery was finished. When she woke up, she looked around but didn't see her father. She lowered her head, looking disappointed. When she touched her hands, which were heavily bandaged, her eyes immediately turned red. Mommy, when will my hands be better? I have a competition next week. My nose stung, and I almost burst into tears. I held back, forcing a smile. There, Lily, we won't go to the competition this time. How about we go next year? Lily was a smart and precocious child. She seemed to understand, and her beautiful eyes instantly dimmed. She nodded numbly. Okay, Mommy, why didn't Daddy come to see me? I didn't know how to answer, but she said tearfully, Mommy, call him. Lily rarely acted up like this. I took a deep breath and dialed Robert's number. The phone rang for a long time before it was answered. His impatient voice came from the other end. What is it? His tone was like a thorn that pierced my heart deeply. After a long time I said, Where are you? From the other end came Kevin's chirpy shouts. Uncle Robert, hurry up. The roller coaster is starting. Hearing that voice, Lily's face instantly turned pale. She trembled all over, and tears welled up. I felt it hard to breathe. I questioned him word by word. Our daughter is injured in the hospital, and you're accompanying the culprit to an amusement park. Did you even consider her feelings? Robert seemed unwilling to discuss the matter. His voice was cold and sharp. Just getting your hands hit and you're acting like you're dying? You mother and daughter are truly melodramatic and pretentious, just alike." With that, he hung up the phone directly. Lily bit her lips sadly and looked up at me. "Mommy, I don't want this daddy anymore. Can you take me away?" "Okay. Mommy will take you away." Most of the Shu family's businesses were abroad. After my parents passed away, those companies were handed over to agents, and I was only responsible for collecting dividends. I contacted the agent and asked him to help arrange Lily's transfer procedures. And then I bought plane tickets for that afternoon. I had my lawyer send the divorce papers to Robert's Industries, and I also hired movers to ship our belongings to Ethelgard. When Robert returned to the mansion from the amusement park with Jessica and her son, he found the mansion empty. Robert suppressed the panic in his heart and walked to the bedroom. My and Lily's belongings were gone, and even the joint photos had been partially cut, leaving only his lonely figure. After being together for so long, he knew exactly how much I loved him. So Robert had never expected me to leave without a word. He took a deep breath, forcing himself to calm down, and started calling my phone. But the message from the other end was, "The number you dialed is not in service." He stubbornly messaged me, only to find he had been blocked. I didn't want him anymore. As soon as this thought crossed his mind, Robert's eyes turned red. Jessica watched all this with secret delight, pretending to be worried. "Robert, is Clara angry? Maybe you should go to the hospital and persuade her to come back." The word hospital jolted Robert. He frowned and called his assistant. "Find out which hospital Clara took Lily to today." The assistant quickly tracked my whereabouts and reported urgently, "Robert, Madam took the young lady to City General Hospital today. The medical chart shows they completed the transfer procedures this afternoon." Robert said coldly, "Send me the medical chart." Upon seeing fractures in both hands written on the screen, his face suddenly darkened. The Roberts family believed in a survival of the fittest philosophy. To toughen Lily, he had always played the role of a stern father. But this didn't mean he genuinely didn't care about Lily. Robert looked at Kevin, his voice grim. "Did you intentionally hurt Lily?" It was the first time Kevin had seen Uncle Robert so serious. His mouth trembled, and he was scared into crying. Jessica didn't understand what was happening. She hugged her son and argued, "Robert, what are you doing? Kevin is young. He just thought it was a game and didn't think hitting Lily would actually hurt her." Robert's eyes flashed with a hint of murderous intent upon hearing this. He gritted his teeth. "Jessica, did you really think I wouldn't dare touch you? If it weren't for the 10% shares of the Gu family, do you think you'd be qualified to step foot in the Roberts family mansion?" Jessica froze on the spot, her body stiffening slightly. "You deliberately put on a show for my son and me. You did all this to scheme for the shares I hold." She shrieked like a madwoman, her eyes full of shock and terror. Robert twisted his lips into a cruel smile and reached out, gripping her neck. "If it weren't for wanting to take over the Gu family, why would I have let you to bully Clara and Lily like this? You just signed the share transfer agreement. Now you have no use." Saying this, he roughly threw Jessica onto the floor, his eyes bloodshot. "Your son injured my daughter's hands, and I've always believed in an eye for an eye." Robert kicked Kevin to the ground and brutally stomped on his hands. A crisp crack sound was heard, and Kevin let out a heart-wrenching scream. "Mommy, Mommy, save me. It hurts." Jessica heard her son's cries and scrambled up, trying to stop Robert, but his gaze terrified her into stillness. Only after crushing Kevin's hands did Robert lift his foot, saying flatly, "Broken like this, there's no need for treatment." Jessica was crying hysterically, pleading, "Robert, Kevin is still young, he can't lose his hands. Please, take him to a hospital to see." Robert looked as if he had heard a joke, a mocking expression on his handsome face. "What's the hurry? Lily suffered so much. Now it's just your stupid son breaking his hands. I haven't even done the really extreme things yet." Saying this, he dragged the two of them and locked them in a secure room in the basement of the mansion. The Roberts family had ties to organized crime and had only went legitimate in recent years. This old house had many places for punishment. Jessica looked at the tools of punishment hanging in the secure room in the basement, her pupils constricting. She was trembling uncontrollably. Robert, for the sake of the past, spare us. I didn't mean to harm Clara and Lily, please. Please don't kill us." Robert smiled lightly, lowering his gaze. "It's a law-abiding society now. Why would I kill anyone? Don't worry, when Clara comes back, it'll let you out." Despair deepened on Jessica's face. "What if Clara doesn't come back? Then you two will have to stay here until the end of your days." Robert's tone was calm, as if stating something insignificant. After speaking, he ignored the mother and son's wailing and directly locked the door to the secure room in the basement. After leaving, he mobilized all the Roberts family's overt and covert forces to search for Lily and my whereabouts. When he found out I had bought tickets to Ethelgard, Robert's heart finally settled. At least I hadn't fled somewhere beyond his reach. Medical treatment in Ethelgard was more advanced. I consulted several orthopedic specialists, and they said there was an experimental drug that could promote bone healing. However, the experimental drug was difficult to obtain. There was a waiting list of nearly 6 months, and after 6 months, it was uncertain whether she would be fully healed. Just as I was at a loss, Robert appeared. His handsome face showed some fatigue. Clearly, he had flown in overnight. The moment he saw me, his eyes lit up, but upon seeing Lily sleeping in the hospital bed, his expression instantly turned grim. Can Lily's hand still be saved? His voice was filled with worry, and his eyes were full of guilt. I just thought he was ridiculous. When Lily was injured, he said she was faking it. What was he doing putting on this act now? Do you need something here? If not, please leave. Lily and I don't want to see you. Robert had never seen such a cold expression from me. Panic visibly flickered across his face. Clara, listen to my explanation. I only brought Jessica back to get the shares she held. You are the only one in my heart. I raised my eyes. So, the shares were more important than our daughter and me? You could watch our daughter be bullied by Kevin, watch her swallow her pride, break her hands, and never be able to play the piano again. Is that right? Robert had thought that after explaining things clearly, I would forgive him, but thinking of the hardships Lily and I had endured during that time, his certainty completely vanished. His eyes were bloodshot. He stepped forward to hug me, but I dodged him. I looked at him coldly and said word by word, no matter the reason, it's not an excuse for you to allow others to hurt our daughter and me, from beginning to end. All you've ever loved is profit. Don't come looking for me anymore. Let's part ways peacefully. The moment the words part ways peacefully left my mouth, Robert's expression changed. A darkness flickered in his eyes, and he frowned. Clara, you want to leave me? He walked towards me step by step, his tone laced with threat. Who are you going to find? David? He lost to me 8 years ago. 8 years later, he shouldn't even think about winning against me. I really didn't want to argue pointlessly with him. David had indeed pursued me, but ever since I chose Robert, I hadn't contacted David again. I took a deep breath and suppressed my anger, saying calmly, what I do has nothing to do with you. Leave here immediately. Robert was stung by my reaction. A hint of aggression flashed in his eyes, and a vein pulsed faintly on his neck. Clara, don't make me angry. I looked up and replied, what, Robert? Are you going to hit me now? His face turned even uglier. He stepped forward and gripped my chin tightly. Come home with me. I won't say it a second time. The sound of his voice wasn't low. Lily, lying in the hospital bed, was woken up. Seeing Robert, her face filled with panic, her little face was pale, and she said tremblingly, don't hit mommy. Robert paused his action and let go of me. Seeing Lily's expression, a hint of pain appeared on his face. Lily, Daddy's here. Are you still hurting? He walked to the hospital bed and reached out to touch Lily's face, but Lily pulled away. Her eyes were full of wariness. The usual affection was completely gone. Robert looked at Lily's wary expression, and a hint of hurt flickered in his eyes. He withdrew his outstretched hand, his voice hoarse. Lily, are you still blaming Daddy? Lily frowned as she looked at him, as if seeing a stranger. You brought Jessica and Kevin back and let them bully mommy and me. From that moment on, you weren't my daddy anymore. Robert's breath hitched, and he frowned, looking at me. Did you teach her to say that? I didn't know how I felt inside. My mouth tasted sour, and it felt like a stone was pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. It has nothing to do with mommy. I was the one who asked mommy to bring me to Ethelgard. Lily's tone was firm, full of protectiveness towards me. Robert slowly closed his eyes. After a long time, he finally said, Lily, don't worry. Daddy will find a way to cure your hands. Saying this, he turned and walked out of the hospital room, giving me a deep look before he left. I knew Robert would never let me go easily. He seemed noble and indifferent, but deep down, he was incredibly dark and despicable. It wouldn't be easy to completely get rid of him, but right now, treating Lily's hands was the priority. I really didn't want to dwell on these things. Robert mentioning David just now reminded me, the Shen family were a family of medical experts. Perhaps they could find the medicine to treat the fractures. It's just, David and I haven't been in touch for many years. The Shen and Shu families were families with a long history of friendship. David and I had known each other since we were little. He was very good to me, and my parents wanted to marry me to him, but at the time, I didn't want my marriage decided by others, so I directly refused the proposal. David thought I wasn't interested in him, so he enrolled in graduate school abroad and never returned to Viridia. I heard from Aunt Sarah that he had never married and was currently working at the Ethelgard Research Institute. Now, the only people I could rely on were probably the Shen family. Thinking of this, I dialed David's number. The phone rang for less than 3 seconds before someone answered. "Hello," David's clear, pleasant voice came through. For some reason, I suddenly felt a little nervous. He seemed a bit puzzled and continued, "Who is this?" I took a deep breath and said, "David, do you remember me?" There was a long silence on the other end. Then David's slightly hoarse voice came through the receiver. "Clara," I hummed in agreement, and then he said, "Are you doing all right?" It took immense courage for David to ask that question. He hoped I was doing well, but if everything was smooth for me, it would mean he had no chance. I lowered my eyes and thought for a moment, then said faintly, "David, I'm in Ethelgard right now. Lily's hands are broken and she needs an experimental drug. Can you?" Before I could finish, David interrupted. "I can. Which hospital are you at? I'll get the medicine sent over right away." He was still the same as before. Whatever request I made, he would fulfill it unconditionally. I told David the hospital address, and he arrived at the room within half an hour. After so long, he was no different than before. He was still tall and upright, as handsome as a god, and a look of surprise appeared in his beautiful, narrow eyes the moment he saw me, but he had always been cool and reserved, so his expression didn't change much. "I've already had someone send the medicine to the hospital. If there's anything else you need my help with, just say the word." His gaze was too intense. I didn't dare meet his eyes and could only awkwardly look away. Seeing my reaction, David chuckled softly. "What? You don't even have the courage to look at me anymore." Before I could say anything, Lily spoke up naturally. "Uncle, can you help mommy get rid of my daddy? My daddy brought an auntie and a little brother home to bully mommy. Mommy wants to break up with him, but he came to the hospital to bother mommy again." David's brow furrowed sharply upon hearing this. He looked at me worriedly, his voice anxious. "Robert treated you like that? Why didn't you contact me sooner?" I lowered my eyes and said after a long time, "David, thank you for being willing to help me. I can handle things with Robert myself. You can handle it?" David strode forward and stood before me, saying forcefully, "The Roberts family is very powerful. How will you handle it?" If I had known this would happen, I shouldn't have let go so easily back then. "Let's not talk about the past. I don't want to discuss it right now." David tried to restrain himself but couldn't suppress his emotions and said directly, "Clara, you don't have to carry this burden alone. I told you that as long as you were willing to turn back, I would always be here waiting for you. That promise will never change in this lifetime." "Oh really? But Clara is still my wife right now, Mr. David. Isn't what you're saying a bit inappropriate?" Robert was holding 2 insulated food containers, staring at David with an unfriendly expression. He scoffed and his gaze fell back on me. "Clara, you're really not well behaved. We just had a little spat, and you're already moving on to someone else?" He placed the insulated containers on the table and forcefully pulled me into his arms. Even now, Robert still thought I was just having a tantrum. I struggled forcefully out of his grip, my eyes icy. "Robert, maybe I wasn't clear enough. Let me say it again. I want a divorce. I don't love you anymore, and I don't want to see you. Do you understand?" After hearing these words, Robert's face instantly darkened. He stared intently at me. "You don't love me anymore? Clara, do you know what you're saying?" I looked steadily at him, my tone firm. "Robert, let's part ways peacefully." He narrowed his eyes slightly and scoffed. "There is no such thing as part ways peacefully in my dictionary." David stepped forward and shielded me behind him. He stared coldly at Robert, saying calmly, "Mr. Robert, I told you back then that if you ever wronged Clara, I would definitely take her back. Now I'm here to make good on that promise." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an air of finality. Robert's expression instantly became more menacing. He grabbed David's collar, but before his fist could land, David blocked it with a swift movement. "Mr. Robert, a hospital room is no place for you to act like a brute." Robert scoffed coldly and let go of David's collar, then looked at me. "Clara, come back to Viridia with me tomorrow. I've already contacted the best orthopedic surgeon in Viridia. Lily's hands can definitely be healed. Mommy isn't going back with you. And neither am I. If you really care about mommy and me, you should just let go. Lily couldn't stand it anymore. She got out of the hospital bed and hurried over to me, glaring angrily at Robert. Robert was taken aback that Lily would say such a thing. He was silent for a long time before finally saying, "Lily, I do love you and mommy, I know. But you love Prophet more. We will never be the most important thing in your heart. Mommy doesn't love you anymore. Why are you insisting on forcing her to go back?" Robert wanted to say something more, but his lips parted and closed several times, and he couldn't figure out how to explain. I looked up at him, saying word by word, "Robert, let's get a divorce." Upon hearing this, an expression of unwillingness appeared on his face. But then, as if he thought of something, his expression became dejected, and he said in a suppressed tone, "Okay, I agree." I had no way of knowing why Robert agreed to the divorce. We smoothly processed the divorce, and from then on, I never heard from him again. Lily's hands had recovered thanks to the experimental drug. After 6 months, they were back to normal. David helped find a piano teacher, and she started training again, preparing to participate in the Starlight Cup after the new year. On the day of the competition, David and I sat in the audience, cheering her on. Lily wore a beautiful white gown, sitting elegantly and gracefully at the piano. Her fingers danced nimbly across the piano keys, and the beautiful melody echoed through the concert hall. For this competition, she had practiced tirelessly day and night, her finger techniques now deeply ingrained. When the judges announced the champion's name was Lily, surprise showed on both David's and my faces. News of this competition quickly spread back to Viridia, and Robert saw it too. He stared fixedly at his confident, beautiful daughter on the screen, then glanced at me in the audience, tears welling up in my eyes. When the host asked Lily's parents to come up and speak, I smiled and looked at David. "David, would you be Lily's daddy?" David nodded, his voice joyful. "It would be my greatest honor." David and I held Lily's hand. Lily's eyes curved into crescent moons as she smiled, and she happily introduced us to everyone. "This is my mommy, and this is my soon-to-be daddy." Mommy said she would marry him after I won the award. This kind of happiness was something he once possessed, but now he had handed it over to someone else. Robert held back as much as he could, but in the end, he still spat out a mouthful of blood. Lately, he had been busy transferring his businesses in Viridia to Ethelgard. He thought I would come back someday, but in the blink of an eye, I was about to marry someone else, and everything he had done had become a joke. Jessica and her son were still locked in a secure room in the basement. Robert stumbled and opened the door. Jessica looked at the man with a head full of white hair in front of her and almost didn't recognize him. She tremblingly pulled her son into her arms. Robert looked at the two of them coldly, gritting his teeth. "Get out." Upon hearing this, Jessica picked up Kevin and ran out. The first thing she did was report the case to the police station. Robert was sentenced to 7 years in prison for intentional injury and unlawful imprisonment. On the day he was incarcerated, he called me, but I didn't answer. Since I had chosen to let go of the past, I had to make a clean break. I didn't want to be entangled with him anymore. Regardless of the outcome, it was Robert's own choice. We had loved each other once, but he didn't cherish it, so ending up like this was just his own doing. David and I held our wedding, and Lily was our little flower girl. David was a very competent father. Although he was cool and reserved, he was incredibly gentle in his actions. Lily smiled more and more. She told me that only now did she understand what true happiness was. 2 years later, I gave birth to another child, named Ethan. At first, Lily was worried that Daddy wouldn't love her as much after having his own child. But later she found that no matter who came along, Daddy's love for her hadn't changed at all. David's most frequent saying was that for the love he finally found after so many years of waiting, he would give his absolute best to cherish me, and our happiness continued.